Kamdot muvak, nya Kelly mulik. Greetings, my name is Kelly, dan yip naush Luis.
Shamai chuig wusimwi. Anya napchugig Luis. Greetings, my name is Luis, and welcome back to our O'odham and Piipaash Living Languages series, New Words.
In the previous episode, we discussed how the meanings of words in any language can and do change or expand to describe new objects or concepts.
Yes, this is called semantic shift. One example we used in the previous episode is the O'odham and Piipaash word for lightning. In both languages, the meaning of this word expanded to include electricity or electrical devices.
Since we've already provided a basic description on how this process works, let's focus this episode on a few more interesting examples. I'll start with some Piipaash examples. Let's start with the Piipaash word tishkin. Originally, this word referred to clay pots used for cooking. When metal pots and pans were introduced, they were also called tishkin.
That seems pretty straightforward. Metal pots and pans are used in essentially the same way as clay pots, so that's not a significant shift in meaning.
Yes, here's another example that's pretty straightforward. The Piipaash word for arrow is ipa. The meaning of this word expanded to include bullets when they were introduced. The Piipaash word wamakhav originally meant breechcloth. The meaning of this word expanded to include a diaper. Today, diapers are more common than breechcloths, so most people think of diaper when they hear this word, but it still means breechcloth too.
Can you think of any more Piipaash examples that may not be so obvious?
Yes, there are some semantic changes that require more cultural or historical knowledge to understand how these changes occurred. For example, the Piipaash word khanmo means chicken. It originally meant duck, but the meaning expanded to include chickens when they were introduced. As chickens became more common in our daily lives, this word became more associated with chicken than duck. So much so that duck is now called khanmo khalyuvash, which seems like we're saying a chicken that goes around on the water. Another not so obvious shift is with the word kaveh, which means west in Piipaash. In most other closely related languages, this is the direction for south.
How do you account for the semantic change of a direction word? That seems like a pretty significant change.
Kaveh also means downriver. The Colorado River runs downward in a southern direction. That's why it's the direction of south for related tribes like Mojave and Quechan. The Piipaash now live along the Gila and Salt rivers that run toward the west. So the downriver meaning didn't change, but the direction of downriver changed from south to west in Piipaash.
Wow, that change in meaning wasn't obvious at all. Very fascinating.
Here's an example that's based purely on two things that look similar. The Piipaash word for gourd is khanal. Some speakers have expanded the meaning of this word to mean pear.
That's understandable. Pears are shaped like gourds, so I can see how that change could happen. I've noticed that all your examples so far are nouns. Are there any Piipaash verbs that have changed or expanded in meaning?
Yes, changes in meaning happen with verbs too. The Piipaash verb chuveshk means to make something run, in the literal sense, like a horse. Now this word also means to turn on, start up, or activate a motor or some type of machinery. Of course, there are many more Piipaash examples I could share, but I want to hear some O'odham examples of words that have changed or expanded meaning.
Of course. The first word that comes to mind is kuikut, which we discussed in a previous episode. Kuikut originally referred to the traditional flute, made out of the common or giant reed. Nowadays, kuikut is used for any woodwind or brass instrument, like a trumpet or clarinet, or any device that plays music, like a radio or even an iPod. If you want to specify a traditional flute, you would now say vap kuikut.
That's a good example of a word that has expanded its meaning to include new items. Are there any more examples that are similar to the Piipaash ones that I talked about?
One that is very similar is the O'odham word u'u. This word originally meant arrowhead, but just like the Piipaash example, expanded to include bullets. Another example is the O'odham word atosha, which, exactly like the Piipaash example, originally meant breechcloth. The meaning of this word has also expanded to include diaper, which is now more commonly heard.
Those are pretty straightforward examples of words that have expanded in meaning to include new items. Are there any other examples that are not so obvious?
Just like Piipaash, there are semantic changes that require more cultural or historical knowledge to understand the shift in meaning. For example, the O'odham word karet is the most commonly word used to refer to a car. This word is borrowed from Spanish, but doesn't come from the word carro, which means car. It actually comes from the word carreta, which means wagon. O'odham originally borrowed the word when wagons were introduced and later expanded the meaning to also mean cars. Karit is now primarily used to mean car, so much so that if you want to refer to a wagon, you would use the word uskarit or wooden car. Another example is the word gyumdam, which is the word for matches in O'odham. Matches, as we know them, are a relatively new item, so we have to think about what the word gyumdam originally referred to.
I imagine it would have originally referred to something that our community previously used to light fires with.
Exactly. Most likely, gyumdam originally referred to a flint strike or another type of rock material that was used to create fire. We can get an idea of the meaning based on the related verb gyum, which means to strike something against another item. When you say, I'm going to strike a match, you say, Vando si gyum ida gyumdam.
So it seems the transfer of meaning happened so long ago, it has obscured the original meaning of gyumdam.
Another example is the word koji. Koji is a borrowing of the Spanish word cochi, which means pig. It is used for all domestic pigs, but has expanded recently to also mean javelina. A good amount of O'odham now use the compound mischin koji, or wild pig, to refer to the javelina. But O'odham has its own word, tasikor, that means javelina.
So in this case, koji is expanding its meaning to include the javelina, which is replacing the original O'odham word, tasikor.
Right.
What about verbs? Are there any verbs that have undergone semantic change in O'odham?
One clear example is the word nad, which means to light a fire. Most related words in O'odham, like nada, fire, and nadakud, stove or fireplace, retain a primary association with the meaning of fire. But nad has expanded now to mean turn on a light or turn on electricity. This association started with the adoption of kerosene lamps, which was then transferred to electric lights in modern homes. Similarly, the way to say to turn off a light uses the word chush, which originally meant to put out or extinguish a fire.
That last one is similar to Piipaash. Stampasham is a verb in Piipaash that means to put out a fire or snuff out a flame. But now if I want to tell someone to turn off the light, you can say, Kunyaenyak stampasham. These have been great examples that show how past O'odham and Piipaash speakers adapted to reflect changes in technology or lifestyle. Instead of saying, we don't have a word for that, they created them, or, as in these examples, expanded the meanings of existing words.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of New Words and tune in for more episodes. Do va upam nie!
Yudncha.